Dr. Rob Marvenko. I'm a chiropractor. And one of the things that I'm sure everybody's experiencing is a lot of information about child trafficking right now, which is a great thing. But in my opinion, it can be overwhelming at times because for me, I didn't know what to do, and it kind of touched me because I thought to myself, when you start taking this stuff in and you realize what is going on, it can actually make you feel like there's nothing you can do about it, and you can't, actually make a difference because seems sometimes so big at times. So when I experienced that for myself, I said, I have to do something. I have to do something. So I was very, reaching out to people, sending emails out, and someone, I don't even know who it was, said, oh, you need to speak to Jan Edwards, and I said, great. So I sent an email to Jan. She responded to me right away. And I guess, having all the experience she has with this, she said to me, oh, yes, I can definitely help with what you're talking about. So for me, it was a situation where, and I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this way, like, how could this be going on? Why didn't I know about this? What can I do about it except sit back and get, re-stimulated about all this information that's out there? So for me, the point of getting together is having someone who is very knowledgeable, and I'm going to introduce Jan to you all, who's very knowledgeable about the topic, but more importantly than that, giving us some education about what's happening and her experience, something that we can do about it. I think that's really important for us to have something that we can do in order to do something about this situation that is going on. So she's going to give us that. So I'm excited about that. So Jan is the founder and president of Pave the Way Foundation. This is an organization that is a fierce disruption of the cycle of child trafficking around the globe. She's very focused, and when she got together with me, it was interesting because there are different pieces, and she's going to explain to you these different pieces that are a part of this. But education is something that she's passionate about getting people the information that's necessary so people know about this. I didn't know this much about it. I'm probably like the large majority of people out there that feel like, how was I in this closet? Like, why didn't I know about this? Why isn't it all over the news? Why isn't it all over Facebook? And hopefully she can clear those reasons up. So this is accomplished through education and training programs that empower communities to break the cycle. Jan spent over 25 years as an executive in sales and marketing, working with organizations like Time Warner, Bright House, United Nations, and other international groups before taking on the worldwide initiative to prevent and help children. Pave the Way has educated over 13,000 youth and adults in the past 3 years. Jan has been featured on NBC, multiple podcasts, iHeartRadio as an influencer and prevention education, was awarded Orlando Magazine Woman of the Year, Women on the Rise Community Impact Leader 2019, and American Haitian Artwork 2020 Community Advocate for her organization work. So Jan has a lot of experience. She has dedicated all her time to this problem. And she, like I say, will explain what she's doing as far as with the education. I learned a lot from her just in about 15 minutes. We spoke, I watched some of her videos and things like that. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to get together with people that are looking to make a difference and do something about this. And I think in order for us all to feel better in some ways, if there is any way to feel better about this, taking action and doing something is necessary to help us. So I'm going to turn it over to Jan. I'm going to take on the admin and let people in who show up a little bit late, but I appreciate your guys' time. I know it's valuable. And Jan's going to educate us, and then she's going to give us ways as far as that we can help and leave here today with some actions.
Great, thanks, Dr. Rob. So I'm going to share my screen. So we can get going here. Oh, hey, somebody else has joined. Yay! So I'm going to give you just a smidgy of background how I got here. I was actually invited to go on a medical mission trip to Ethiopia, and it was there that I had my first experience. It was two older men, two younger women, and it just didn't feel right, you know, that gut feeling. And I got back to my sponsor's house and I shared with him what I saw, and he went, well, yeah, Jan, that's, you know, human trafficking. I'm like, what are you talking about, human trafficking? Because mostly people think human trafficking is moving people point A to point B, or it's an over there phenomenon. Well, I'm going to give you the definitions of human trafficking, and I don't expect you to read them all to yourself. I'm going to move you all up a little bit. And for adults, it requires force, fraud, or coercion. For children, it does not. It just requires harmful treatment or abuse to a child to it be considered human trafficking. And that's what most people make the assumption, because you hear trafficking is actually the movement of someone. It doesn't have to happen that way. It can literally happen right down the street like it does right here. So I'm going to show you the heat map. And this is from the National Trafficking Hotline statistics. And you can see the big orange blob dangling off the United States. And that's Florida. And I'm going to share a little bit more frightening statistic. So I want you to think about for a minute, given the heat map that you saw, what do y'all think? Where do you think Florida ranks? Top 10, top 5? Yeah. Yep, exactly. So California is number 1, and where you're from, Texas is number 2, where you're going, Florida, Ohio, and New York. So Florida has the 3rd highest calls to the National Trafficking Hotline. When I learned what was happening in Ethiopia, I paused and thought, hang on a second, I need to fix my own backyard first. And that's really what got me on the prevention side, because I have friends that are survivors. No one should experience what they experience. No one. And I'm a businesswoman. That's my background. And I saw the amount of time and energy and, quite frankly, money that it costs from the moment you rescue someone all the way through a lifetime. And I thought, well, wouldn't it make more sense to educate people over here so they don't ever have to suffer that? Now, granted, it's not as sexy and it's not as exciting as rescue, because I'm very clear, you know, there's a reason why the TV shows are called ER and Code Blue, you know, versus eat your salad and exercise and go see a chiropractor, right? Mm-hmm. If life was like that, more people would do that, but it's not. And that's why prevention work for me just calls me so much, is I want to make sure our kids have a shot at living a great life. And why I say kids is because the average age of entry is 11 to 14 years of age. So they start being recruited at a very young age. Now, a little bit more frightening is Orange County ranks 2nd, and over where you are ranks 3rd, Dr. Rob. So Broward County and Miami County in the state of Florida rank 1. So there's a lot of human trafficking right outside our front door. And it doesn't look like what most people think it looks like. And the other thing that we got going on here is the impact of COVID. I have friends that work at the Arnold Palmer Children's Hospital, and she said that in the month of May, they had a 106% increase of child abuse. Now, if kids are normally in school, it gets reported that way. But now these kids are home. Online child exploitation has more than doubled since May of 2020. There's an organization called the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They're the ones that get those cyber tips. That's where it's coming from. And as we all know, families are at risk of losing their income and or housing, which puts children even more at risk. So that's why this is so important that we get information out there about what human trafficking is and what it looks like, and more importantly, how to prevent it. So those are just some really good facts for you to keep, and I want you to store them kind of in the back of your head. for a little later. So there's different kinds of trafficking. And I just kind of want to, briefly go over those with you so you can get a sense of, we're not just talking about sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is the number one source. And there's also labor trafficking. And labor trafficking includes, domestic servitude, housekeeping, gardening, maintenance. And I'm sure many of you have seen the young boys and young girls carrying the tubs around, selling the $5 candies or candles. Those are traveling trafficking groups. And most people don't even know that's what that is. And as you can see, you've got domestic work, and then you've got illicit massage businesses. So those are the types of trafficking that we want to talk about. Then the demographics. It's predominantly female. It's a split here between foreign national and US citizens. And as you can see, about 25% of the cases reported, and these are cases reported, are children. And that's why we do what we do. If we can prevent one child from going down that path, we've altered a life. We've just completely altered a life. And a lot of people question the reality of this. Is this really happening? And what kind of difference does education make? Well, human trafficking, because when we go out and we talk to people, we always give people the hotline. You can see contacts type community member. So it's people like me and you that saw something that didn't feel right and picked up the phone and called the hotline. And to me, that's everything, because it empowers you to take an action when you see something that doesn't quite look right. And that's why education makes a difference. That's why I'm so passionate about this, is it really can make an impact. Now, these are just a sampling of some of the cases from just the state of Florida, as you can see from last year all the way through this year. So this is alive and this is real. And I love our Sheriff Grady down in Polk County. I just love this man, because there is no holds bar when this man goes after these people. And he'll hold a press conference and hold these guys' pictures up and go, and this guy, he told his family he was going out for ice cream. I bet his family got a double freeze. I mean, he puts the pictures and names of every single person they arrest, shaming the buyers, because these people are intentionally thinking that they're hooking up with children, and that's not okay. And there's a case, a lot of times people don't understand the impact of both girls and boys. So about 70% of the children that are trafficked are female, and about 30% are trafficked are young boys. And the piece to keep really present to is boys do a lot of gaming. And that's really where these traffickers go after them and recruit them and lure them online. There were 2 young men that were rescued last January in St. Petersburg, actually. One came from Georgia and one came from Lake County, and they were on an app on their phone called Discord. And they had just got done playing video games, and they kept the conversation going on this app. It's a chat app called Discord. And this woman, along with another man pretending to be young people, recruited them away from their families into St. Petersburg, and they were used as sex slaves for over 12 months before they were rescued. Now, they thought they were being promised a better life. And here's the thing with our youth. Their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet. So the overtime recruitment and grooming that happens online and sometimes in person is what starts to drive a wedge between children and their families. And these are some of the biggest risk factors our kids deal with. And even if our kids are at home right now being educated, they could be in another room. The parents could be in their office like I am, and we would have no idea who they're talking to online. So even though I'm still home with my parent, I'm not getting their full attention. Poverty, as I said earlier, is a huge risk. Low self-esteem. We all remember what it's like being a teenager, yeah? Braces, curly hair, straight hair, whatever that was, no muscles starting to develop. Even if we look that way in 5th grade, that mentality still stays with a child into 8th, 9th grade. And so their self-esteem is still low, and predators know this. And we all have this sense that we all want to belong and be loved. And predators know this too. And the grooming that they use is very simple. And I'm going to show a quick little video here about how quickly it's done and how fast it's done. Because this is what our parents think, oh, it's not my child. It's never going to happen to my child. And kids are like, oh, I'll know the difference. Until we actually have this conversation and they start to realize that the bond that this person started with them is becoming like exactly what we're talking about, having them take more and more risks doing things they would never choose to do. But because they feel safe, they feel like they're loved, they feel like they belong, they go ahead and do those things that they're being asked to do. And if you'll see in the bottom, domestic abuse. With everything that's happening with COVID, our kids are high risk because of this. So I'm going to play a little video. We're going to see how this works. And it's just a really short 3-minute video to show you how quickly this happens.
How does it work?
Okay, well, it's pretty simple, really. There's no secret to it. Basically, you just go in, go to the places where people like to go, you know, on the internet, and you pick someone.
Oh, we're just friends, but he's so cool. I mean, we talk all the time. He's on the JV football team, and he's in that science club that I've been wanting to get into. So, and we have some mutual friends.
Also, you have an instant level of trust. There's a mutual friend that you can clue in on.
So I haven't seen him around, but I think we might have bumped into each other a time or two.
Once you get them to connect with something familiar, it's all good.
He's a really cool guy. He's super cute and really funny, and we like all the same movies.
Everyone wants to list their favorite books, their favorite movies, their favorite places to eat. So you clue in on those, and you can instantly find some common ground with someone.
I'm really excited to meet him.
What next?
Well, once I have her hooked, I just have to reel her in.
He says it's a surprise, so who knows? But either way, he said we're going to have a ton of fun tonight.
Promised her we'd have some fun today, so I just wanted to show her how much I like her.
It's going to be super fun, and we're going to probably just get to know each other and, you know, go out. So it'll be fun. I'm excited.
So as you can see, That's how they do it. Now, the thing that I talk to parents about and talk to kids about is everything you put online is public. It's public information. And you saw how quickly that happened. And it really does happen that quickly. And kids think that their buddies are right here on their phones and their apps. I was talking to a guy that's former Secret Service, and he said when they were recruiting people, kids would put on their application some of their references, and their references were people who they played video games with. They'd never ever met them before. And the other conversation I had too with both kids and parents is, we've all played tennis at some point in time, tried to bat the ball. And if we were going to play against Serena Williams, clearly she'd have the upper hand, far more skilled. Her serves go 100 miles an hour. Well, that's what it's like with an online predator. You've got a 45-year-old male or female interacting with a 11 or 12 or 14-year-old child. Clearly, the mental skill set is separate and distinct. And these people know exactly what to say and know exactly how to lure our kids in. So the things you can start to look for with your kids and kids in general is if they become fearful or anxious, withdrawn, if you see grades drop, depression where they were never depressed before, secretive, spending a lot of time in their room, and when you come in, shutting their laptop or turning their phone off. And what I tell kids is, if you have pictures on your phone that your mom or dad would be embarrassed to see, I highly recommend you delete them. And kids are like, oh, they don't even think about that because they don't understand that once a picture leaves their phone, it's gone forever. And these predators know this, and they use it to threaten and manipulate them. Because what this guy could have done, once she sent him a picture, he asks for more pictures, and this is where the online exploitation happens. And once the kids start to get uncomfortable and they say, no, I don't want to do that anymore, the predator will go, well, I have all these other pictures. I can put them online if you don't keep giving me what I want. And they turn around and sell them or exchange them with other people. That's how this is happening online. And our kids are so, they just don't know. They're innocent. Their brains don't function that way. And it's our job to educate them lovingly and gently. Now, if you're out and about and you might be getting gas at a gas station or getting a soda someplace, these are some things that you can start to look for too with adults. In particular, really unusual tattoos, things like crowns, ace of spades or ace of hearts tattooed, queen tattooed across their chest. Those are all marker tattoos. They've actually seen girls with barcodes back here in their neck behind their hair. And the things you want to look for are the withdrawn. You could be at your favorite, convenience store getting your soda, your tea for the afternoon and your hot coffee, whatever that is. And you're in there in line and you might see, a gentleman with two girls or a woman with two girls, and they're always looking down. Their whole body is scooped in, and they don't interact when someone asks them a question like, oh, how are you doing today? They won't speak. Shy is one thing. Being suppressed and controlled is another. And that's the kind of stuff you want to look for. And the thing that I tell everybody is you want to trust your gut. Your gut, as my chiropractor friends know, our gut has more neuronal receptors than our brain does. And so when you get that feeling, trust it. If something feels off, you want to take the action and make the call. I've stood in front of thousands of people, and I always have adults come up afterwards and say, there was this one time I was, we were at the boat show and we were walking down farther in the docks and we were walking out looking at some boats. And there was a girl with her face pressed against the window and she just looked so sad. And it didn't feel right and I didn't know what to do. And I've lived with that regret ever since. Well, that's why we're having this conversation. So we can actually empower you so you don't have to have that regret because I'm committed that people know what to look for and they know what to do. So here's some numbers you can actually put in your phone, and I'm going to give you a minute to do that. I want you to pull up, you can take a picture of it, but I'd rather you just go ahead and go on your phone and put the National Trafficking Hotline number in your phone. I've got the Florida Abuse Hotline and the non-emergency number for Orange County. And I want to give you a little sense of when to use them. Much like the woman that was on the yacht area, out seeing a boat, that's when you want to call the National Trafficking Hotline. You're not seeing somebody shove someone in the back of a car or someone dragging a little girl down the street and the little girl screaming, "You're not my dad." Right? That's when you want to call 911. And I know the tendency, especially for men, is to get involved. They want to pull forward and take an action. I'm going to invite you to pause and make the call because they're trained professionals out there that know exactly what to do. Because look, this is a $150 billion industry. These are very dangerous people and they know what they're doing. They're not stupid individuals. They're business people. And you're messing with their income. And you're important. And I want you to be around to make another call. So I always tell people, call 911 immediately. Get a picture of the license plate. Tell them which direction they're going. So the authorities can handle it. Because they'll bring a victim advocate right along with them as soon as they stop to get those kids or get those adults that you might see. The National Trafficking Hotline is brilliant. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's 100% anonymous. And a lot of times people question, oh, well, what happens if I call and it's not it? It's okay. Every survivor I've ever spoken with has said, I wish someone would have called for me. A friend of mine who's a survivor locally, her mom trafficked her from starting at the age of 4. And one day they were at a hotel, and back in the day where there were vending machines down in the lobby, of the local motels, her mom was getting some stuff out of the vending machine and the front desk person came out and she mouthed the words, "Help me." And I guess by the time the me came out, her mom turned around and saw what she did, and her mom gave her a big whack against the face, and she stumbled and fell. And the front desk person turned around and walked away. And she was about 11 years old when this happened. She could have been rescued right then had that person known what to do. And that's why it's important that you, 1, know the signs, 2, trust your gut, and 3, know what actions to take. So I'm hoping everybody's got that number in their phone by now. And here's where I want to leave you, all right? I really want you to share some of what you've learned. I've given you some great facts. Florida's number 3, Texas is number 2, California is number 1. The average age is 11 to 14. And what's brilliant is you can start a conversation one way or the other. It could be, oh my gosh, I was on this webinar today and I learned something incredible. Did you know that California has the highest number of calls to the National Trafficking Hotline? And people, because you're sharing a fact, right? And people will be like, no way. And you're going to go, I know. And then you can look it up together. All right. So you've started a conversation. And if they go, yeah, I kind of heard something about that. You can be like, yeah, what do you think we should do about that? Right. And either way, whether they believe you or not, you've started a conversation, which is super important. 2, you want to put the hotline in your phone number and use it. You can share it. I was visiting a friend over the weekend on a much needed vacation. And she was talking about this exact event with a friend of hers. This friend of hers was talking about, oh my gosh, she was seeing something that was off. She's like, what do I do? And my friend literally pulled out her phone and she goes, you call this number right here, and showed her the hotline number. So just sharing the hotline number with people can make a huge difference. And the last piece is it's an opportunity for you to get involved. So as Dr. Rob said, there's a whole process of what happens. I'm on the prevention side. It's what I got called to do. There is advocacy. There are two bills right now sitting, one in the House and one in the Senate at the federal level, to ensure human trafficking education goes into every single school across the country. You can advocate legislatively. There's, working with rescue organizations, Operation Underground Railroad, Vets to Serve, Phantom Rescue. There's dozens of organizations that rescue children. If that's where your heart lies, we can point you in that direction too. Some people really want to work with the survivors and help with that. There's dozens of organizations that do that. Aspire here locally does that. Devereaux does that across the state. Selah Freedom does that over in Tampa, Dr. Rob, actually down in Sarasota, right? There's some really good organizations in Texas and California too. So if that's where you're called, we can send you that direction too. And then there's, restoration. This is a lifelong experience someone has. You don't get over being sex trafficked. The neuronal patterns are actually altered when this happens over time. The trauma bonding and the abuse actually alters the neuronal patterns. And it affects these men and women for their lifetime. I did this event called the Fireball Run. And one of my partners was a survivor, Teresa Flores. She has an organization up in Ohio. And she wrote a book. And as I'm reading halfway through her book, it's called Slave Across the Street. As I'm reading her book, I had to stop reading because I'm very clear she only gave us like the upper version of what was done to her. And I looked at her and I go, how do you sleep? And she pointed to the, because we shared a room, she pointed to the nightstand and there were 3 little pill bottles. And she pointed to those and she said, I don't dream. That's the impact. It's the long-term impact. She hadn't been trafficked in 40 years. That's the long-term impact of what human trafficking does to someone. And that's why my job, my passion, my commitment is to educate as many people as I can, educate as many kids as we can, so they don't ever have to experience that. And that's why we do what we do. And we invite you to come along. Rob and I have there's a couple of events coming up, but I want to make sure that you get my contact information. It's one of my favorite quotes from Frederick Douglass, one of the early day abolitionists, is it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So there you go. I'm going to stop screen sharing and give you an opportunity to ask any questions. Whatever you'd like to, any questions you might have for me, feel free to ask.
We didn't get the phone number.
Oh, you
Right.
didn't see it?
No, I didn't see it
Okay,
anywhere.
yeah. Rob just put it out to everyone. It's 888.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's in the chat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
3737888.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't keep looking for it. Great. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah, good. So you have the number, which is very important.
One of the
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's I love the whole educational thing that you're on, because if everybody becomes aware, and if we can get these 2 bills passed so that it goes into the public schools and to be taught the kinds of human trafficking and what their like basic human rights are for the children, that's a huge start. I mean, it's like a huge, children only learn what they live and they have nothing to compare to, it's like, I remember thinking, oh, my household is, I'm one of 7 children and we didn't get everything we wanted, right? But my parents worked really hard and, we had fun times and stuff, but you're thinking like, oh, my life isn't as fun as other people's. Well, then you go to your friends' houses and sometimes their dads are like super mean or something. And you have now something to compare to. But when you're really young, you don't have anything. You just think this is how it is. My uncle likes to do this to me, blah, 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 all this shit. And it's just like, just really, really hard to confront a lot of it. But
it is. And look, and I get it, especially now. Look, with everything going on out in the world, this is the last thing anybody wants to talk about. And I get it. And look, predators are banking on this. Way back in March, when they closed UCF, and I remember posting something on Facebook, I'm like, you watch, the schools are going to be right behind it. And sure enough, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God. So we were online within 2 weeks. We did a 2-week debunking myths on Facebook, and all of those are on YouTube. And then we did 1 week in Spanish, because we wanted people to be aware of what was happening, and more importantly, how to have the conversation. Because you can share a fact or you can share a story, and that starts the conversation right there in such an easy, simple way. It's non-threatening. You're not coming at people this way. You're coming in the side door, which is I like coming in the side door. And it really, you know, and it sits with people, and it gives them time to resonate, and they get to think about stuff, and then they get to come back and ask questions. And that's what we want people to do. I just want people to think. That's all I want. You know, just do the thinking. And it actually empowers them, because you all know, you can talk to your patients all day long, but until they go, Dr. Rob, I started stretching and oh my gosh, I feel better. You know, even though you kept telling them, you got to stretch, right? It doesn't, when people discover stuff on their own, it stays with them. And that's why sharing facts and giving little bite-sized pieces of information can actually inspire them to go out and find out more. And then, like Rob, get really angry about it and go, no, we're going to do something about this. Because the more voices like y'all's, married with all of ours that have been at this for a long time, it just enhances what's happening. And the more people aware, the more kids we get to save.
What do you think, Jan, and I never asked you this, but what do you think as far as is the because for me, it was a situation where I was like, why didn't I know anything about this? Like, this is something that is horrific, and it's not, you don't know. It's just not out there. So, but now it seems like there is a lot of talk about it. There's because I know it came over, you know, with me, and now I see all this stuff. So why do you think that? Are people waking up? Are they seeing more stuff? Are they sharing more stuff? Like, what is the reason why there's this big, like, push now?
You know, I think with the, you know, okay. So I'm going to keep this as non-political as I can. Okay.
Got it.
So when Trump signed the executive order of anyone violating human rights, we will get your stuff, right? That was really the beginning of this. Now, and AG Barr has gone after this for a long time. There's lots and lots and lots of people around the world doing this. And we've known that, right? Jeffrey Epstein, people knew about this. He was tried in South Florida, and it was just swept under the rug.
Yeah.
You know, and when I first started reading about this guy, I'm like, he's just a master blackmailer. That's what this guy's doing.
Yeah.
And finally to have him caught is really what brought this to light. It's really what smacked people in the face and went, oh my God, this is like really happening. And then you had the Peter Nygaard case, right? This fashion mogul up in New York. And again, it's like the 1-2 punch. And then we finally bring in Ms. Maxwell. You know, and if you've noticed, ever since she's been arrested, almost every couple of days, there's a huge bust. Huge sting. Well, look, this woman has information that it would take decades to get. And she's either got it written down or she's got it in her head. And that's going to help us start to break down these rings of trafficking, because the thing that goes hand in hand with human trafficking is drug running and gun running. You know, almost all the gangs, how they finance themselves is by human trafficking, because other than a drug, which you sell once, you can sell someone over and over and over again. And that I think that's because it's starting to go hand in hand with a lot of this other stuff. You're starting to see more and more governmental agencies getting involved in that. So I think that's part of it. Is you had 1, 2, 3 very famous people. You know, you got Prince Andrew in the mix. All of a sudden, you've got some very high profile people.
Yeah.
And then, if you remember, several years ago, you had 2 musical artists commit suicide within a very short amount of time, and everybody claims that they were gonna, you know, blow the whistle on the Hollywood pedophilia, and the elites out there. You know, you had Harvey Weinstein happen too. So, it's with the advent of social media, with the advent of the internet, with the advent of everything that's happening online, it's all next to impossible for these people to hide.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other part too, is they were leaving trails that law enforcement could finally like really grab a hold of and prosecute them. You know, because the challenge with human trafficking and prosecuting them is you're relying on the victim who, I don't know if any of you read one of Epstein's victims' deposition. It was let out on the internet on July 30th. I read it's 289 pages. And how this attorney interacts with her. Everybody on here wouldn't be able to answer the questions as eloquently as she did. And we didn't have any trauma.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't traumatized for years by these people. And to be able to have a victimless case, you know, have the victim show up once or twice versus having the burden on that person having to prove is, I think, the other piece that's really going to make a difference. And there's a lot of intelligence agencies working on that they can go after the RICO money, and the human trafficking comes right along with it.
Gotcha.
So that answered your question and gave you some more.
Yeah. No, that's what I kind of saw and understand, but it is kind of one of those things that I think in some ways, I think, you know, the stuff that is coming out needs to come out. And it's one of these things where it's probably some very, very, you know, disturbing things that have to just come out. It's like ripping the Band-Aid off, you know?
Well, and I'm sure you've seen the articles about the police officers in New York that saw Wormer's the stuff on his laptop. They all got violently ill, you know. So the things that are being done, your brain can't be with, you know, that kind of trauma, and even the, you know, the Facebook and the Twitter and the Instagram and all the people that look for these images, they have to go get counseling because there's only so much of it they can take seeing, you know, to be able to pull it down and, you know, be able to file complaints about these people. And same thing with the people in the FBI unit and NCMEC is traumatizing to the brain, and these people are seeing it every day. And so our brain has a really hard time registering it. But that's what I tell people, trust your gut. And when I talk to the kids, it's like, y'all remember that one family member, you know, whether it was the family reunions or the block party, that quote, quote, uncle down the street. And when your mom goes, you know, hug Aunt so-and-so or Uncle, you didn't want to, and you couldn't say why, because you were little, you just didn't like them.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the gut feeling that I'm talking about. And there's not been one group of kids I've stood in front of that they don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, that creepy person that made you feel funny, that's the feeling that I'm talking about. And they all get it. And as adults, we've squashed it with kids.
Sure.
You know, and so I always apologize on behalf of all adults in your life, you know, with these youth. I'm like, look, for all of the adults that made you hug someone you didn't want to, I apologize. Because in that moment, we took away your right to do what you choose to do with your body. And they all kind of sit there and they look and they think, and same thing with parents. I'm like, look, by age 5, let them shower themselves. You can stand outside in case something happens, but there's no need for you to be in there. It's a really great opportunity for you to teach your child, this is your body. And no one can violate, no one can break that barrier, not even the doctor, without me standing there next to you. You know, and it's really teaching our kids that this is their body, and it's our responsibility to teach them to protect it. And it's also okay for us as other adults to kind of, you know, gently and lovingly intervene when it's not happening. You you know, especially with people in our own family. I have been known to interrupt strangers, but that's just kind of me.
Well, one thing that I feel that I have is more passion for the education part, Jan. And so I thank you for that, because as a chiropractor, I'm always looking at how to get at the cause of something rather than wait till it's broken. And that's what I heard. Yeah, that's what I heard you say today, is really education is going to stop that person from ever experiencing it in the first place.
Absolutely.
Then you don't have to save anybody. And isn't that a good call?
Yeah, and it's really great too, because the youth really, they get it and they love it. You know, we went back in, we educated about 350 kids at a middle school and went back in later to, you know, because I'm a business person. I want to make sure what we're doing makes the difference, right? Is it impactful? Is it lasting? Does it interrupt a behavior that could potentially be detrimental? And 60% of these kids, and remember, these are middle school kids, it always blows me away. 60% of these kids shared what they learned with a family member or a friend.
Wow.
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
To get middle schoolers to talk about anything is pretty miraculous. But to have them talk about this tells me volumes.
Sure.
Right? It impacted them. And then the other one that just always moves me is 27, because I always coach the kids what to do, right? I'm like, look, if you see something off, we talk about the gut. I'm like, you got to go talk to a grown-up. You got to go talk to a trusted adult. The second piece is, I said, it's so simple. I said, y'all know those kids that eat lunch by themselves and they'll all nod their head. And I said, I said, super simple. Just take your lunch and go sit next to them. He says, go like, I'm just going to sit with you for lunch today. You don't have to talk to me. We don't have to, I just want to let you know I'm here. I'm going to sit and have lunch with you today. 27% of these kids did that.
Wow.
19% of them stopped bullying online. You know, so our education not only educates them about human trafficking, it actually has them become good citizens and advocates and abolitionists. You know, they interrupt the action, because the last thing I want is for some kid to get into their uncle's, brother's, sister's, cousin's car unknowingly. There was a story that I like to share, and I'll end with this. It was a little girl, family was, you know, married, happy in San Francisco, and parents got divorced, family moved here. And, you know, they lived in a nice apartment complex, and mom worked full time. And, you know, the daughter came home from school, and one of the little boys in the complex said, oh, I'll make sure she gets a snack. I'll help her with her homework, you know, and as a parent, single parent, you're like, oh, thank God, you know, some help. Did that for 6 months, bonded with the mom, bonded with the daughter. Everything was good. And one afternoon they toddled down. He's like, hey, let's go to the bodega. You know, let's go get a soda at the bodega. Right. So they toddled down to the bodega, and it's like, hey, my buddy's car's over there. Let's go say hi to my buddy. Shoves her in the car. The guy sticks her with heroin, and she becomes a heroin addict for 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Wasn't by choice. You know, and luckily she got out 10 years later and found a safe house here and got clean and, you know, is being restored. And the thing that, you know, I share with people is people don't choose this life. No 5-year-old says, yep, that's what I want to do. I want to be raped 15 times a night by strange men. No. Or 10 or 15-year-olds or even 25-year-olds. It's not a choice. They're groomed and they're recruited and they're lured in and they're manipulated and kept in by threats, by physical violence, or by drugs. No one chooses this life. So if I can interrupt it down here so they have a choice and they can actually become a modern day hero and save not only themselves, but somebody else, I'm in that game all day long.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jan.
You're welcome.
One thing that I'm going to do is follow up with everybody. Personally, I'll follow up with everybody and find out if, you know, we can be of any help as far as taking a next step to doing something. We're going to have another call. So one thing that, you know, I feel people can do is tell a friend about it and say, hey, I have this great opportunity to get a little more information and find out how you can make some somewhat of a difference if you would like to. And that's what I think for me personally, as the idea that I can't even agree with this that's happening if I don't have something that I can personally do about it.
Yep.
And so I don't want to do that. I don't want to pretend it's not going on. It is. And so I think I'm like a lot of people. There are things that we can do about it. So yeah, I'm excited to work with you, Jan, and
Me
work with
too.
people, yeah, that want to do something about it. And
And it's
we're
really, yeah, people can, volunteer anywhere.
yeah.
They can pray, they
Mhm.
can share our post. Even just finding us on Facebook and sharing our posts
Yeah.
makes a huge difference. And then you
Yes.
can always, share a friend and make a contribution to the organization that calls your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Especially this is some really interesting times right now.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And with COVID and it's really impacting the survivors. They're dealing with isolation and depression. You've got kids dealing with isolation and depression. And, I'm just grateful for a community like you, Dr. Rob, and the friends that you've invited that were able to come on, Ann and Bonnie and Nicole, who's one of our mission ambassadors, to be with us today.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I think as far as for this going forward too, for those of that you are here, there's, probably a lot of things you can do. Pick one and moving forward, what we can do is we can invite somebody to the next call and, spread that way, as far as just getting more and more people interested and, educated, about this, and pick something to do. So I'll be in touch with everybody. I'll reach out to everybody. We'll talk more about what we can do. I'll get emails. I have a growing email list already, and reaching out to people with in Facebook and things like that to get more and more people interested. And like I say, just to help, there's a lot of things that we can all do.
Great. Angela joined. I know it's towards the end, but I'm assuming she's one of yours.
Yeah.
And yeah, Bonnie, that's a great question. Bonnie asked, how can we really tell if the organization, like good or not versus, the ones down in Haiti? And
Great question.
it's a great question.
Yeah.
So, I only work with vetted organizations, So if there's something that really calls you and you're, Bonnie, I don't know what area of the country you're in, but, you can always reach out to me. I put my website in there and say, hey, I'm looking at these 3 organizations. Which one would you recommend? Because if I don't know them, I know someone who knows them. Charity Navigator is probably one of the first places to go check. Bonnie, you're in Clearwater. Yeah. So just, let me know what direction you're headed, because I'm on several task forces. And if I've not heard of them, doesn't mean anything. I can pick up the phone and call my other people that are in this same fight and go, hey, who have you heard? Because we vet each other all the time. And when I first came on the scene 7 years ago, people are like, who is this woman? And I just kept honoring my word and kept showing up and doing what I said I was going to do, and kept honoring my word, honoring my word, honoring my word. And they're like, oh, I guess she really means it, So over time, and doing what you say you're going to do, builds a reputation. So that's who we work with. And everybody that works inside our organization, in particular our mission ambassadors, they all go, have to sign an NDA, and they all have to do a background check, because we want to make sure the people that are in front of our people are vetted. And that's just, it's not everybody's thing. And I'm okay with that. Good. Okay. And you had a couple of things you wanted to bring up, Rob, before we closed.
Yeah, this Saturday, I'm working with somebody. I think she's on. There's a walk downtown Clearwater. I don't know if anybody has all the information on that, but it's Saturday the 22nd, August 22nd, and it's sort of like the one that Operation Underground Railroad did in St. Pete, same kind of thing, but just about bringing more awareness, and it's in downtown Clearwater. So if anybody is from Florida and Marie DeFlorio, she is the one that is heading that up, and that's going to be Saturday the 22nd.
What organization is she with?
I think this was one, it was kind of funny because it was one that I heard about even before the one that was downtown St. Pete. but it was just, it was scheduled for Saturday the 22nd. And like I say, I'm not really sure what organization it was, but
Yeah, I'll look her
yeah,
up.
it's just, it's just,
I'll look her up.
a,
Hey,
a,
Angela, I don't know. Are you you're probably in the central time zone with Anne, would be my guess, or maybe out west. But yes, it was recorded. And
yeah.
I'll send it to Dr. Rob and he'll send it to you.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is I'm working with Jan on the education piece, and I'm really excited about this because she has some very, very reasonably priced educational things that we're going to be working together, offering people online. So I wanted to talk about that. Jan, tell us when the first one is.
Sure, I just put the flyer in the chat for people to download if they'd like to. It's Saturday, August 29th. It's from 9 a.m. Eastern Time to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's entitled Not My Child, Protecting Your Children from Online Predators. And we'll go into far more depth and information inside what we just kind of touched on with the Discord. We'll go over apps, we'll go over tools that predators use. I just actually pulled up there's actually a book that somebody put together for predators of how to recruit children online.
Wow.
So this is a full-time business for people. And parents need to know this. And so they need to know the tricks and tips that these guys use to get your kids. And, I'm going to call it pig Latin on text of what to look for if you're looking at your children's texts.
Oh, okay. So this course is geared more towards the parent, right? To
Yes.
get the parent educated to protect their own children.
Exactly.
Okay.
So they can have this kind of conversation,
Right. Right.
Because it's a weird dialogue to have with your kids. Every time I've been in front of youth, they're like, I said, I'm going to talk to you about sex trafficking. And some of your parents may not have even had that talk with you yet, and they're all like, yeah, but we already know, because kids talk amongst each other.
Sure. So if you guys could take that on to share the flyer, that'd be great. And just tell somebody about it that that is a parent who has children that want to get educated about this. That'd be awesome. So I'm gonna be working with Jan on that. She has. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And you can find me on Facebook under Jan Edwards. My picture is the world in hands with doves.
Yeah.
So that's how you know it's me.
I'm sure Jan will have links to that education, but that's what we're going to be working on together, is bringing more people to the education piece. And I tell you, I'm glad I was here today, Jan, because what you said to me really rang true about the education, because you're very right about that. It's not as exciting as, helping and being out, because me personally, I said to my wife, I said, don't be surprised if I'm, flying somewhere and going on a secret mission, because I would do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the education piece, I think, is really something that you shed some light on today about how that is really getting at the core, at the root, pulling out, the problem. And so I'm excited about that even more after